Uh-huh. I just feel like I've been around the block, ripping up fantasy stock, working around the clock. Look at the view from the top. Researching rookies a lot? No, I just be listening to pods. Yeah, one in particular, I'm just a messenger. Let me just pass on the rock. Browning, brunning, pruning, pronouncing ain't what he's doing. What he's doing is not losing, but infusing you with new things. And there's Dennis the Bennett, yeah. The man is a menace, yeah. Building a dynasty, some of the finest things. Promise you, you won't regret it. Sly as a fox, cultured in pop. Give him his props. Here is a thought, here is a box, and you cannot compare them at all. So don't even try. Careful with the news, but when you use a take, I take up Tony Fire. I mean Dyer, because anyone else is a huge mistake. Whoa, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, yeah. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Hey, fantasy round table, fantasy round table, woo. Fantasy round table. Come take a look at the crown, baby. Go.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast. I wouldn't call our lineup options a fantasy this week, and it is only week 6. The injury bug continues on. The Rams, the Chiefs, the Dolphins, and the Vikings are all on a bye, which does not help matters. But Dennis and I managed to avoid the injury list this week. We also managed to avoid going on a bye this week, so we're here.
Yeah, you know, I'm more of the chronically injured kind of player.
The Tom Brady, always on the injury report.
Yeah, at my age, I'm always, my wife thinks I'm questionable. That's for sure.
We had today's homecoming at school where they had the pep rally, and I watched they introduced all the fall sports teams, and the volleyball team dove to the center of the floor and then did a back somersault. And I looked at the counselor I was standing next to, and I was like, at my age, if I tried that, I'd still be on the floor for the rest of the day.
Speaking of pep rallies, our Cole, my 8th grader who played football for the first time this year, they had a pep rally at his school celebrating the fall sports. Each team introduced, got somebody recognized. And my son was recognized by the athletic director and his head coach. He won a sportsmanship award. I know. I was like, he already in the team banquet, he got the coach's award for for working hard and being a good teammate and stuff. And, it was really, I'm really pleased with the progress that he has made. He works hard to be a good person. Well, I shouldn't say that because that means he is naturally not good, is what it sounds like. He is a good person, and he makes being a good person look easy. At least that's what all of his teachers tell us. And I'm really proud of him.
Meanwhile, for me, we eclipsed 120 decibels with screaming children today. So if I say what somewhere in the show, it's not me doing my Milton Berle impression. It's just me thinking about the hearing I'm never going to get back. You get it from rock concerts. I apparently get it from 1,000 kids screaming.
What?
Exactly. Thursday night football saw the San Francisco 49ers and the Seattle Seahawks meet up in Seattle. 49ers get the 36-24 victory. First victory on the road this season. First victory in the division on this season. Moves to 3-3. Now a tie with Seattle atop the West. I think they would then own the tiebreaker. But where there was good news, there was also bad news. Jordan Mason comes out with an AC joint sprain. Dennis, if he misses time, Christian McCaffrey's window did not get open, so we know he won't be back. I'm guessing it's Isaac Guerrero, and on paper, 10 carries for 99 yards is great, but he had 76 yards on one breakaway scamper, so it was really 9 carries for 23 yards, followed by lightning in a bottle. But how are you feeling about Guerrero and or Patrick Taylor if Mason is out?
So they both were grinding, and then Guerrero had that big run. And then he made that smart play. It was crazy because it's like Deebo Samuel said after the game, look, man, Guerrero should have just scored the touchdown. They didn't need to give the touchdown to Juszczyk. Guerrero thought he was doing a good thing. Oh, I'm going to stop. We'll just run out the clock.
I don't know if he totally stopped. He does get hit on his foot as he's running, and it's kind of around the same time he slides. I don't know if he tripped and decided he was going to hook slide so he didn't go out of bounds as he was going down, or
Yeah,
if that was his. They nobly said it was his intention all along. Not 100% sure that's the case.
yeah, well, makes for a good story.
Yeah,
It
sure.
was, Mason was tearing off big chunks. He looked good. AC joint sprain. It's not as serious for a running back, I guess, as it is for a quarterback. That's a silver lining.
I think
No.
it depends on whether it's his dominant hand. And I think this was his left, so probably because I would guess like your best tucking hand, you wouldn't really want that.
So I think Garendo is going to be fine. We talk often about the Shanahan running scheme and how it produces good runners, going all the way back to Mike Shanahan in Denver, and so are we going to expect Christian McCaffrey numbers from Isaac Garendo? No, but then again, we didn't expect Christian McCaffrey numbers from Jordan Mason either. Mason did not produce in the passing game anything near what McCaffrey did. And it does, Garendo didn't have a target last night. Patrick Taylor had one target. So, but they have George Kittle, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel, and who's that other cat?
Juwan Jennings.
So they've got plenty of players to throw the ball to. It may actually, for fantasy, benefit because we've been saying for 3 years now, San Francisco's biggest issue when it comes to fantasy is somebody gets left out every week, and you just don't always know who that's going to be.
Well, it's going to be Brandon Ayuk because
if the running backs aren't catching passes, that means there's more targets for the wide receivers and tight end. So, maybe they are, by default a little more consistently productive, and then the running game does what the running game does. In sprained AC joint, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks he'll be out and Mason will be back. But
and he may not miss time at all. They do have a 10-day layoff before their next game.
And then it seems like I heard somewhere that they were looking at November for McCaffrey to be back, but I don't know.
Based on last night and the reports, there is no. All they've said is it's week to week whether they open his window. Once they open his window, they have 21 days. They haven't done it. They won't do it until potentially next week. So for the Seattle Seahawks, now 3-3, they won their first 3. They've lost 3 in a row. What do we make of this offense?
Geno looked rough at times last night.
He also looked displeased with either his coaches or his teammate there down the stretch.
He, I don't know. It was they had a couple tough breaks. The penalty on the Metcalf touchdown, Geno missing Kenneth Walker at the end of the game wide open for what could have easily been a touchdown. But Geno he didn't place the ball very well yesterday. He can be upset all he wants. His passing was off yesterday. And, it looked like he came into the game knowing he was going to get a hefty dose of Nick Bosa, and he certainly did. He looked like he was ready to get hit pretty quickly, and he threw the ball as such.
So let me ask you a question, because we have Sam Howell on that team, and I had thought preseason that the Seahawks wouldn't be that great, and we would end up seeing Howell. They started hot, but arguably that was a pretty soft part of their schedule. First start for Bo Nix at home against the Broncos. Then you were at the Patriots. That was never going to be a great team. They caught the Dolphins at exactly the right time. Then they had the Lions. and that was a tough game. Probably what should have been the most winnable game of this stretch would have been at home against the Giants, and they kind of pissed that one away. Lost to the 49ers. Now they're at the Falcons, home for the Bills, home for the Rams, who should have Kupp and possibly Puka Nacua back. Then at the 49ers. It's possible they're 3-7 at the end of that. Then do you start wondering when you're going to see, because then they have a game against the Cardinals, then they're at the Jets, at the Cardinals, Packers, Vikings, Bears, Rams. That's not an easy schedule. That was one of the reasons I thought they could potentially struggle.
Yeah, it's at some point, I think if Geno starts to falter consistently, I mean, and let's face it, we know Sam Howell can withstand 100 sacks. So
it's true, unfortunately.
I think yesterday they tried to right the ship in the running game. Walker had 14 carries. He also had 8 targets. He operated like a 3-down back. And if they're going to make moves in that direction, it may be to protect Geno. I don't know. I think Sam Howell brings, I don't want to say an air of mystery, but he's willing to take chances. I think that Geno maybe isn't.
Well, you got to see what you have in him, right? You traded for him. Geno's contract expires, I believe, after this year. He was probably not going to be your long-term answer. You have an entirely new coaching staff, including offensive staff. I would think if they see the season sliding away, which that is a tough 4 games, going 1-3 might be an accomplishment in that, and then you'd be 4-6. Not once he starts sliding away, I bet there's a chance we still see Howell.
Yeah, I think it'll be a little bit later, and it'll be probably at least 6 or 8 more games.
Might be nice to start him against the Cardinals game though, at home. That would be potentially an easier matchup than going to the Jets, who has a good defense,
but if you're gonna
playing Vikings, Packers, Bears.
It isn't like Howell is an untested rookie though. So do you want to, like, if you're gonna start him in a game, because it should be an easy matchup, well, why wouldn't you want to use that to get your quarterback right? Your veteran quarterback. I don't know. I think that it's going to be interesting to see. It is a head coach and offensive coordinator that didn't bring Geno in. And so that, they're not going to have, I think, a strong allegiance to him. And they did trade for Howell. So, they may be a little more willing to make that switch.
Let's move on to the week 6 games. We have a second of 3 London games, the 1-4 Jacksonville Jaguars at the 3-2 Chicago Bears. Dennis, how are we feeling about rookie Brian Thomas Jr.? He's now up to wide receiver 9 on the season, back-to-back games with 21 or more points.
He has ascended to the top of the pecking order in Jacksonville. He's big, he's fast, he's getting open. Trevor can throw him questionable balls and he goes and gets it. I do think there's still there's still space for Christian Kirk, but I think that space is going to be made by what Brian Thomas does over the top. I mean, he's leading the team in targets, receptions, yards, and touchdowns. The question was a little bit coming into it, like we've seen a lot of really, really good LSU wide receivers come into the league, and we expected Malik Neighbors was going to be the next one. The question was, well, would Brian Thomas be able to step up to that level? And he seems to be doing it. I think that he's a weekly start right now.
Meanwhile, for the Bears, their passing game has picked up, and we've seen great things for DJ Moore. It's also been great for DeAndre Swift. But What about Rome Odunze and Keenan Allen? Allen missed a couple of games, but he's played 3 games, averaging only 6 fantasy points per game in those games. Only 8 fantasy points per game for Rome Odunze. Really, 1 huge game and 3 games with 5 points or less. How are you approaching those guys?
You're playing fantasy roulette with them each week. Unless the Bears suddenly start to throw the ball 40 or 45 times a week, DJ Moore is the one you're confident with. Rome or Keenan, it's who's getting the volume this week. Is it going to be the guy over the top, i.e. Odunze? Is it going to be the guy underneath, i.e. Keenan Allen? It doesn't seem like both of them are getting enough volume to put up numbers on a consistent basis. Allen missed some games, but on a per game average, he is only averaging about 1 target per game more than Odunze. I think we'll see Odunze kind of start to separate a little bit. No pun intended. Just because he's the younger, more athletic guy, he's going to be able to bring a little more to the table. There'll be games where Keenan is very productive. I don't think he's like ready to be put out to pasture. I just think that on a team that has a lot of weapons, right now he's kind of getting lost.
Yeah, and I think for me right now, I'm not bullish about either of them. They'd be more desperation flexes, which we've seen the lineup choices.
Right.
I have some desperation
spots. Wide receiver 58. So, that's square in, flex territory, low end flex.
I am taking the Bears in this one.
I am taking the Bears as well.
Next up, the 2-3 Arizona Cardinals at the 3-2 Green Bay Packers. Dennis, what are we doing with Kyler Murray? In the 2 wins, he has had 25 or more points, and 3 losses, 15 or fewer fantasy points.
Make sure that bar is tight across your lap because that roller coaster is going fast. They get Zay Jones back in a week.
Yeah.
Not this week. So he's coming back off suspension. Now it's like, can he get in football shape? But Michael Wilson has been performing well.
He's back off suspension. Now he's out with a hamstring injury.
So Trey McBride, he's established. He's doing his thing. Marvin Harrison is inconsistent. I don't know how catchable his balls have been on a consistent basis. But, when he's getting open, he's making plays when he has a chance. I think it's going to be, excuse me, I think it's going to be a situation where you have to keep an eye on him. He's going to be at least a QB2. But in certain matchups, you may be able to count on him to get you some QB1 numbers. I don't know that I'm going to expect him to break off a 50-yard run on a regular basis, but the running game is part of what he brings to the table, and he does get a decent amount of rushing touchdowns. He has the tendency to finish higher than I expect on a season-long basis, but you do have these ups and downs. QB 15, QB 1, QB 17, QB 24, QB 5. Buckle up, Buttercup.
Meanwhile, for the Packers, Romeo Doubs back from suspension. Jaden Reed is healthy. Christian Watson got in some practice. Is a game-time decision. How are you feeling about the Packers receivers?
Who's the game-time decision?
Christian Watson.
Oh, okay. I didn't even put him in the rankings because I just didn't expect him to be back.
No, but he's logged practice, and now they've upgraded him to a game-time decision. I had to drop Dontavian Wicks, and I put him back because it's trending like he's going to play.
I saw one of the Twitter doctors arguing with Christian Watson's dad about the injury because the Twitter doctor was saying it was a sprained MCL or it was a high ankle sprain. And the dad was like, did you see the MRI? And he's like, I saw the video. And he goes, yeah, I saw the MRI. I talked to the doctor, and it's not a high ankle sprain. So I was like, yeah, you're not.
Well,
I'm not going to argue with a
it
player.
would
who's bad.
suggest that he might be right about that, because originally when they had said it was a high ankle sprain, they were talking about him being out for several weeks, which is what I figured. I'm like you. I didn't have him ranked, and then I saw the practice report today and that they listed him as game time, so I went and put him back in there and doxed Dontavian Wicks a little bit.
Well, and here's the thing. Christian Watson is fragile. He's
his ego and his body.
He's extremely talented, but we've seen him break down, have hamstring issues, which to his credit has not been an issue this year. It's been knee and ankle. But I have him ranked at Reed, Wicks, Dobbs, Melton. I would probably, if Watson plays, I'm probably going to slot him in at number 2, because if he's playing, that's where his talent level is, but
Reed's the only one I feel good about.
Yeah, the Dobbs situation is weird.
I will say I think Dobbs could be sneaky this week because he's been very contrite, which is what you would be looking for from somebody who got a weird team suspension that they didn't give a lot of details about.
Right. We're going to keep it in-house. He ain't playing.
Either way, I'm taking the Packers.
So am I.
2-3 Indianapolis Colts at the 1-3 Tennessee Titans. Buckle up for some fun there. How are we feeling about the Colts offense? Game time decision now for Michael Pittman, who we were told midweek would be out on IR for at least 4 weeks. Josh Downs is now trending toward being okay to go after not practicing at all throughout the week. And Anthony Richardson, a game time decision. But we do know Jonathan Taylor is out.
The quarterback position is the one that gives me the most uncertainty, because they just play such different styles. If Flacco is in there, that there will be certain types of things happening. If Richardson is in there, there are going to be these different types of things. More quarterback running, or some quarterback running. But Flacco is going to do a better job reading the defense, getting them in different plays, making throws to different receivers. Richardson, I think, has a ton of potential. Pittman being dinged up in a game time decision when there was talk he was going to go on IR, it feels a little bit like brinksmanship. I'm really hesitant to count on him in my lineups right now. And if Josh Downs, this could be, Alec Pierce and one of those random tight ends that they have with Jonathan Taylor out. Tennessee's got a good defense. So, Trey Sermon is who Trey Sermon is. Before the show started, I was telling you that I traded 2 26 fourth-round picks for him just because, I could use an extra body at the running back position this week and F them picks. So,
amen.
But again, I'm only expecting 8-9 fantasy points from Sermon. If I get that, I'm going to be happy.
So what makes me nervous is if Anthony Richardson comes back, we saw even in the games he played with Jonathan Taylor, it hurt carries and stuff for Taylor. And it is not a particularly great matchup. Tennessee's not my favorite team, but they are pretty stout up front against the run. They've smothered the teams that they have played. Sermon's kind of a low-end guy for me. Honestly, for the Colts, I'm playing Downs because he has been the best and most helpful. I don't know how I feel. If Pittman's active, I don't know what to buy from them. If you have other options, like last night, I had to decide whether I was going to roll with Ayuk or play Pittman, and I played Brandon Ayuk because who knows? I still don't necessarily think that's going to be bad because he has been real up or down. I almost might prefer Alec Pierce as a deep dart throw flex because we've seen both Flacco and Anthony Richardson bomb it to him. He seems to be there. We're going to YOLO ball it at some point in time, no matter who the quarterback is.
Yeah, and Pierce is making plays this year. And
Yeah.
isn't AD Mitchell dinged up a little bit too?
Yeah, and he's just been kind of a non-factor. I'm not comfortable playing him until we see something consistent. One quarterback we know is definitely playing is Will Levis has been declared the starter again. Tennessee Titan Nation mourns. How are you feeling about Levis?
Well, he needs to get the bonehead plays under control.
I mean, if he does that, does he have anything left? These are the jokes.
So he was QB 25 through the first 3 games, so he was barely streamable as your QB2 in Superflex leagues. But they finally have a relatively healthy DeAndre Hopkins. Chigo Okonkwo is producing a little bit. The 2 running backs are putting up some numbers, enough to the point where you wish just one of them would play so you could have a really good running back, but they're playing both of them, so you have 2 flex plays basically. Calvin Ridley has been inconsistent. When it comes to Levis, I'm not expecting a lot. I don't know what you can trade him for at this point in a dynasty league. I don't think you're going to get a whole heck of a lot out of him in a super or in a redraft league. He's probably cuttable in redraft, but he's one of those guys that somebody's going to pick up to fill in on a bye week. Because just maybe we've seen him have his first game was 265 yards and 3 touchdowns. So we know he could do something sometimes.
He's just been so bad. I still have him as a QB3, and I'm going to take the Colts because I don't care who their quarterback is. I feel like that I'm out on the Titans.
Yeah, I got the Colts as well.
4-1 Houston Texans at the 1-4 New England Patriots. Dennis Nico Collins did go on IR. That means he is out for at least 4 games. We know Stephon Diggs has been there doing his thing. Slow start for Tank Dell, but are you feeling him this week?
I think I like him a lot better with Nico Collins out. CJ Stroud likes him. CJ Stroud pounded the table for him on draft day. And so, he was 4 for 4 last week. I forget how many yards, not a ton, but Xavier Hutchinson kind of stepped into the Nico Collins role. I don't think he's going to produce like Nico Collins did.
He only caught like 2 passes too, and it was a relatively close game. They kind of really went to Diggs and Dell, it seemed like, after Collins went out.
Yeah. And then, Dalton Schultz will do Dalton Schultz things.
Mixon is expected to be available too, which could help them.
I like Dell as a flex this week.
Yeah. On the other side, Ramondre Stevenson is now out. They have no offensive line. They have no receivers to get your heart thumping, but they are throwing Drake May to the Wolves and a team that bottled up Josh Allen and the Bills offense last week. So how you feeling about Drake May?
I got to be honest. I didn't know that Robert Kraft was a Mayan and, so willing to sacrifice virgins for
is it Kraft or is it Gerard Mayo?
So it was, so the Patriots are giving up the 2nd most sacks in the NFL. They have the 3rd highest sack rate, and they have the 2nd lowest net yards per pass attempt. So they're not doing great, Bob. May, here's the conundrum. May is going to need to get the ball out quick so he doesn't get his butt kicked, but he's also going to need to get the ball downfield to the receivers away from the line. So how often is he going to have enough time to be able to get the ball downfield? Because, there isn't a lot to be had, with 1 yard A-dot throws.
Yeah.
But on the other side, Houston's given up the 11th most fantasy points to quarterbacks. It's low yards, but a lot of touchdowns. So if Anthony Gibson can play well, and do some good stuff from the running back spot, Pop Douglas is wide receiver 69. He's their highest ranking wide receiver fantasy asset. I'm not expecting a ton, but I've seen
Hunter Henry is probably their best pass catcher, though.
What's that?
Hunter Henry's probably the best pass catcher.
Oh, yeah. But, Keishawn Butte's been getting in and making plays. And at one time in college, he was considered quite good.
And Kendrick Bourne's back now, and he was fine last year.
Right.
He was the best receiver last year.
So they've got a lot of guys that are aspiring to be a wide receiver 3. Is one of them going to be able to get there?
I do think the Texans' defensive numbers are deceptive because that first week, that was a real seesaw game against the Colts. And then the second week, they got trucked by the Vikings. They've been quite a bit better in the last few games since then. I'm taking the Texans. And honestly, this Drake May getting started kind of almost feels like Gerard Mayo's heard all the complaints that he's holding the offense back by putting Brissett out there. And he's like, fine, I'll give you the kid. And you'll see that it's not me holding the offense back. It's the lack of players.
Yeah, it's almost like when Jay Gruden in Washington wouldn't play, was it Howell? No, wouldn't play Dwayne Haskins, was it?
Yeah, Haskins.
And then he was just like, you know what? Fine. You guys think you know better? I'll play him. I'm not going to give him anything to be successful, but I'll put him out there and let you guys know that I think he sucks because he's going to suck because I'd rather shoot myself in the foot than get him ready to play.
Well, there you go. I assume you're taking the Texans as well.
I am.
3-2 Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the 2-3 New Orleans Saints. Dennis, how are we handling the Bucs backfield with Rachaad White downgraded to doubtful?
Bucky Irving will be probably low end 2. He's looked good, and there was some pass catching ability when he was in college, so he could really surprise. The other side of it is they got Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, and now is who's the defensive back that Marshawn Lattimore. If him and Evans are just boxing all night, it could be detrimental to the Bucs.
They should have Jalen McMillan back though too.
Yeah, I hope so because I stuck him in one of my starting lineups. So, it's Tampa can make things happen. They've got some good players. Bucky Irving has looked good, and with Rachaad White, it's going to be an opportunity for him to show, look, I'm good in a full-time role too, not just when you give me 9 carries.
Meanwhile, for the Saints, Drake May is not the only rookie getting a start. Spencer Rattler getting a start, which one of my bold predictions was these 5 rookies would start this year. So once May and Rattler take their first snap, I will have nailed that one. Feeling pretty good about that. It's only week 6. But how are you feeling about Rattler on the field?
So to quote Spencer Rattler when asked about Chris Olave, I make it a key point that when he is in, I get him the ball. Spencer Rattler is clear on the mission. He's got a big arm. It's going to benefit Rashid Shaheed as well. He's a downfield shot taker. Spencer Rattler's a downfield shot taker. Rattler's not he's not super mobile. He didn't run. He ran like a 4.9. He's not fast, but he's got a big arm. Will he make the right reads? That's going to be the question. And will the offensive line hold up? They've got Kamara. They've got Jamal Williams to be able to have a reasonably good run game. And so they may try to balance it. But I think Rattler's going to take several shots downfield to Shaheed and Olave. And I don't think he gets rattled if he throws an interception.
I'm going with the Buccaneers in this one.
So am I.
1-4 Cleveland Browns at the 2-2 Philadelphia Eagles. Dennis, Nick Chubb's practice window got open this week. He has officially been ruled out. He wasn't ready to return, but we're getting closer. If you've been holding him in fantasy, I know the Browns offense has been a mess. Are you getting excited?
No, because the offense has been that big a mess, and for Kevin Stefanski to be so adamant that he's not gonna set Deshaun Watson down for a game or two to just say, hey, let's get right here. Take a week off. Watch Jameson Williams go for 350 and 3 and 4, because he's going to have his interceptions. But Nick Chubb, for as good a player as he is, they timeshare him. They don't throw him the ball very much. And if he comes back and he plays the first game back, he may earn his normal amount of touches based on the fact he's Nick freaking Chubb. And he may put up, a typical Nick Chubb game, 15 carries for 97 yards and a touchdown. Or he may be like many running backs coming back off a major injury, and he's, 15 carries for 44 yards and no touchdown.
Something to look forward to. Well, the Eagles are back off a bye, and you know what? A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith are back. Are you hyped?
I am, because I have several shares of Devonta Smith. I don't think I have a single share of A.J. Brown. But the Eagles, Saquon Barkley, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, and Jalen Hurts, you know what's coming at you. We'll see. Can the center continue to improve? It's tough following a legend. Lane Johnson out at right tackle, and I forget who they got at left tackle now.
They've got Tyron Smith, I think.
Yeah, no, he's at the Jets.
Oh, he's with the Jets. That's right.
So it doesn't matter. We don't get fantasy points for that.
In my fantasy blocking league, I sure do.
Well, you and your slick leagues there.
I'm just kidding. I could never. It would take too much time.
So I expect it's going to be more of the same. They're going to run the ball well.
It's Jordan Mailata.
Okay. They're going to run the ball well. They're going to throw the ball well. You've got two of the best receivers in the NFL. Dallas Goedert, usually when you've got Barkley, Brown, and Smith, Goddard kind of ends up as the odd man out. There'll be a tush push, maybe two. It'll be the Eagles doing what the Eagles do.
I am taking the Eagles. I think this could be a good game for them.
Yeah, I think it could be a blowout. That's what I think it could be. I initially, early on, my offseason picks, I had the Browns, but I'm changing it to the Eagles.
4-1 Washington Commanders at the 3-2 Baltimore Ravens. This could be one of the better games of the weekend. How are you feeling about Terry McLaurin? He is up to wide receiver 24. A couple of slow games at the beginning, but he has had 13 or more points in each of the last 3 games.
So it seems like, Cliff Kingsbury there realized, hey, man, I've got a really good wide receiver. I should probably throw him the ball. I don't know. McLaurin, he's sitting at wide receiver 24 right now. The Ravens are giving up the second most fantasy points to wide receiver, third most passing yards to wide receivers, and the second most receiving touchdowns. It should be a good game for Terry McLaurin.
Meanwhile, kind of a roller coaster ride for receiver on the other side, and that is Zay Flowers. He's been unquestionably the best wide receiver for the Ravens, probably their most consistent pass catcher, but it's still been a yo-yo. 11 points, 22 points, 5 points, 2 points, 19 points. How are you feeling about Flowers?
So the Commanders are pretty stout against tight ends. Now, granted, they're going against a 3-headed tight end monster in Baltimore and Andrews, Likely, and Kohler. So that may present some problems that the Ravens have, or the Commanders haven't faced up to this point. Because to be fair, Washington hasn't really faced a good tight end. I think Washington's given up like the second or third fewest fantasy points to tight ends. And the best opportunity they had, McBride was out, so they didn't have to play McBride. And then last week, Njoku, it was his first game back from injury. So they haven't faced a lot of competition for that position. So that being said, who else do they got besides Zay Flowers? Rashad Bateman, he's earning his contract, I guess, but he's not nearly as good as
he has been better than in years past, but he's still kind of a desperation flex.
He the desperationist of desperation plays.
Yeah,
I think Flowers is probably in the wide receiver 3 to 4 range this week.
Yeah, I mean, he is wide receiver 3 on the season, doing 29. This was a tough one. My heart wants the Commanders, but I'm taking the Ravens.
I feel the exact same way. Like, it's one of those games where if Washington wins, I'm going to be like, yeah, totally can totally see why.
Yeah. 2-2 Los Angeles Chargers at the 3-2 Denver Broncos, two teams that are suddenly frisky. Dennis, how are we feeling about J.K. Dobbins? He started out with 2 20-plus point games to start the season. He's been below 10 points in each of his last 2 games. Denver's rush defense is no joke.
Yeah, he was, RB4 after the first 2 games and RB38 across the last 2 games. And with the Broncos defense playing as well as they are, I think Dobbins has established his place in the Chargers running back hierarchy. I just don't think it's going to be terribly productive this week. He's a flex play at best. But he also has some explosiveness. He can make some plays. He's probably not going to take it 90 yards, but he could take it 40 yards to the house, I think. I just think that the way the Broncos defense is playing, the Chargers defense is going to have to play equally as good. I know that probably strikes you as shocking, but this is going to be a fairly low-scoring game, I think.
Meanwhile, for the Broncos, Josh Reynolds is out. How are we feeling about Courtland Sutton?
Man, so the volume is there. He just isn't converting. He's averaging a career high 8.2 targets per game.
What was that thing you said about catchable balls?
Yeah. Ain't that the truth? He's got a career low 39% success rate and a 41.5 catch rate, and a 5.5 yards per target, which with Bo Nix makes sense. Let's be fair. Though I have seen Bo Nix throw downfield at Courtland Sutton. He hasn't hit him, but he's thrown in that direction. He's dominating targets. He has more than twice as many targets as the next player on the team. Nix just has to get better at getting him the ball.
This one was not tough for me. My heart says Broncos. My head also says Broncos. Suck it, Jim Harbaugh.
I don't know. Did they add Connor Stallions to the Chargers coaching staff? He may be been watching your signs and giving them to him. I'm also taking the Broncos.
Yeah, which is a huge reversal. And I'll be honest, the only reason I'm taking the Broncos is
Vance Joseph.
My deep sea. Vance Joseph. This is the saddest turn of events in I think my life and my football fandom's history. I don't know where to go from here. 3-2 Pittsburgh Steelers at the 2-3 Las Vegas Raiders in a game that might be the first starting quarterback to miss a pass gets benched. Dennis, it has been a weird week for Pittsburgh leading up to what could be potentially a weird Sunday. We know Russell Wilson will be active. They finally said today he's probably the number 2, which leads you to the fact that it might be a healthy quarterback game time decision. How are we feeling about this Russell Wilson and Justin Fields? I think even if Fields starts, it feels like he's on the shortest of short leashes.
I think the big thing Fields has going for him is that they're playing the Raiders. And I think the Raiders are in somewhat disarray. I think Russ rides the pine. If he does play and get in, I expect he's going to be the Russell Wilson we've seen the last couple of years. He'll make some questionable throws. He'll make a couple nice escapes. He's not going to run like Fields runs. But I also don't know that he's not the passer he was 5 or 6 years ago. For whatever reason, could just be age. I was listening to George Pickens, and I think it might have been on Adam Schefter's, I don't know if it was podcast or on an ESPN show or something this week. I just happened to stumble across it. And Pickens was surprisingly normal and humble for the way that he is portrayed on TV. It was really interesting to listen, to the point where I'm like, he can't be talking to George Pickens. George Pickens is a wild card. And he was just like the most normal, humble guy talking about things. I got to do better and I have to take care of it was the wildest thing.
Yeah, and there's something going on with him and Russ, because they both said nice things about each other. Russell Wilson threw him a lot of verbal bouquets. So, meanwhile, the Raiders have made a quarterback change to Aiden O'Connell. He was 5-5 as a starter last year, but he did not have exceptional passing numbers. In fact, won a game against the Chiefs without completing a pass in the second half. What are we expecting? No Devontae Adams, game time decision for Jacoby Myers and Samir White.
So he was a 62% passer last year in 11 games with 10 starts. He averaged per game 19 attempts for 19 completions on 31 attempts for 202 yards, and he had a 12-7 touchdown to interception ratio. Gardner Minshew averaged 18 for 29 for 195 yards with a very similar touchdown to interception ratio that I didn't put on the sheet. I mean,
what you're saying is they grabbed Spider-Man costumes and pointed at each other.
He's like a 2-inch taller Gardner Minshew. He's got the Super Troopers mustache versus Minshew's mullet. It's just
I think they both have mustaches though.
Yeah, but Minshew's more known for the mullet. He
has a high handlebar too, I think.
Than than Aiden O'Connell having the Super Trooper mustache. He looks like the one dude from that show. I think the Steelers are going to win. It doesn't matter who plays quarterback. So again, this is another one in my quick and dirty earlier. I picked the Raiders, but I'm going to change it to the Steelers.
It's because you had complete temporary insanity for picking the Raiders the first time. I thought they would be better too. I liked Antonio Pierce. I still do, but I don't think he's been dealt a very great hand by their GM.
Yeah, I don't think he's played it that well either. I mean,
those AFC West team games may not have much in the way of scoring, but I'll tell you, the last two games on Sunday afternoon should have plenty of scoring. One for both teams, one for at least one team. And the first is perhaps one of the more games I'm excited about for the weekend, the 3-1 Detroit Lions at the 3-2 Dallas Cowboys. Dallas's defense has died, not literally, but most of them are on IR and not playing. Detroit's pass defense, unless they had a miracle over their bye week, has been a little suspect. So how are we feeling about Goff in this one?
Goff, darn it. It's on the road, which is not great for Jared Goff.
But it's in a dome.
But it is inside. So, we got that going for us. So I'm telling you, there's a chance. Dallas is down to Marcus Lawrence and his backup, Marshawn Kneeland.
Yeah, they're both on IR.
As well as,
Eric Kendricks and Micah Parsons are out.
So, yeah, it's
It's not good.
Dallas gives up the 14th most fantasy points, but a lot of it is to running quarterbacks, and Goff is not that. So I think Goff will be okay, but it's not going to be a spectacular game. And for everything that Goff does well, one of the biggest advantages he has is Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery, and Dan Campbell ain't afraid to use them.
Yeah, I mean, I think all their offensive pieces. Laporta's back healthy. The bye week came at the right time for him and for Amon-Ra. I'm excited for them. Meanwhile, for Dallas, we figure the pass offense should be pretty good from what we've seen. Rico Dowdle last week got something going, but Detroit's one great thing that they've done defensively has been pretty well clamping down on the run. So how are we feeling about Rico this week?
So it's been an interesting trend. So week 1, Elliott had 51% snaps, 44% for Dowdle, with Zeke out touching him 12-9. Since then, it has slanted heavier and heavier towards Rico Dowdle. Dowdle is sitting at RB 28. Zeke is RB 54. There was a little, I don't want to say squawking, but Zeke did mention that he felt like he'd at least get some red zone carries. And, the thing is, while Zeke is bigger and a little and more powerful than Dowdle, Dowdle still, he's like 212 pounds, 211 pounds. He's not petite, but he's no who's the other guy they got there? The little
Deuce
dude.
Vaughn.
He's no Deuce Vaughn. But last week was the biggest one. Dowdle outtouched him 22-7. So before that, no running back had more than 13 opportunities, and that was Dowdle in week 3. It had been 12, 12, 13, 12, and then 22 last week. I don't know if Brandon Cooks' injury had something to do with that, but the way Jalen Tolbert played, I'd be like, let's just keep doing what we were doing. I think Dowdle is the back you want there. I don't think Zeke is startable, and in a redraft, I don't know that he's even rosterable.
I'm taking the Lions in this one.
I'm changing mine to the Lions as well.
3-2 Atlanta Falcons at the 1-4 Carolina Panthers. It was a great week 5 for Kyle Pitts. Will it be a great week 6?
Well, Carolina gives up the 5th most fantasy points to tight ends. On the flip side, they give up the 8th most to wide receivers and the most to running backs. So
you're saying it's going to be a good game for everyone?
What I'm saying is Carolina gives up a lot of fantasy points. I think what will hold, so it is a division game, so there'll be a little bit of extra sauce on it.
I think the Panthers are fresh out of sauce, if we're being honest.
And so I think Pitts will be, in the tight end 1. I think he'll be a tight end 1 again this week. I think they're recognizing and Kirk Cousins is getting around. I get it. Kadarius Hodge made a big play last week, and Darnell Mooney had a monster week last week. But the offense runs through London, Pitts, and Bijan. Let's not forget that. They'll bring some other guys in. Bijan's a little sketchy this week, but I think he's back practicing in full.
He's full, and they removed him from the injury report.
So, I mean, even if you're questionable versus Carolina, you're still off the injury report.
I think it's good they pulled him from the injury report. I will take a little bit of a disagreement. I actually think that Cousins has something going with Mooney. I think Mooney I moved him into top 24 in receiver rankings, especially given the hell that position is right now with buys and injuries and good players who have no professional quarterback to throw them a ball. So I'm starting him. I'm starting London. I am starting Pitts. I had him top 12 too. I obviously have London higher and Bijan. Carolina is one of those if you got him, you probably start him. I'm not going so far as Kadero Hodge or Ray McLeod, but I think the three top receiving options and Bijan wheels up.
Yeah, I like Darnell Mooney. I thought he was going to have a good season. I just at some point, you know, because he's open because they're rolling coverage at Pitts and London.
I doubt they're going to stop.
But at some point, it'll balance out a little bit. And I mean, maybe not against Carolina, but.
Meanwhile, Chuba Hubbard, after a poor week 1, is RB4 the last 4 weeks, just a shade under 20 points per game. How are you feeling about him in week 6?
It's going to be tough sledding. I like Hubbard. He's the show. You know, Miles Sanders has kind of come to life a little bit, but not really. He's not anything that you're looking to start. Atlanta gives up some yards on the ground, but they don't give up many touchdowns. So, you know, they can be had between the 20s. I don't know if Carolina is going to be able to get them between the 20s. But Carolina did spend a bunch of free agent money on 2 big road grading offensive guards to add to that offensive line. And so if they can keep it kind of close, I think they will try to use Chuba Hubbard to do that. But if Atlanta has a couple big plays and they get a couple touchdowns ahead, then Carolina's going to have to change how they approach things. You can't just grind it out with Chuba Hubbard.
I am going with the Falcons.
So am I.
The 1-4 Cincinnati Bengals and the 2-3 New York Giants on Sunday Night Football in a game that NBC tried and was unsuccessful to get flexed out. Chase Brown had a huge game last week. He's a little dinged up, but questionable. They think he should be available on Sunday night. How are you feeling about him?
I think Chase Brown looks great. He runs like his hair is on fire. His pass protection is still a little bit questionable, and I think that's really what keeps him from kind of Rico Dowdling this backfield. You know, Moss, I don't want to say consistent, but, you know, he's one of those guys. He's going to be in the right place. He's going to make the right play. He's not explosive. He doesn't provide, like, he's not one of these crazy. He's not an Alvin Kamara in the passing game. He's just an okay running back. And you can see when Chase Brown gets in there, he just explodes. I think it's going to continue to be a fairly even split in snaps. I could see the touches maybe starting to ease towards the Brown side of the split, just because he brings that explosiveness. And I can certainly see the production moving on the Brown side of the split.
Yeah, I like Brown and his potential, and given the running back landscape and basically the fantasy landscape, I think he's worth a flex consideration. For the Giants, Devin Singletary got a limited practice in. He's a game time decision for Sunday night. They also have Tyrone Tracy, Eric Gray. What are you doing with the Giants backfield?
Man, I'm kind of hoping Singletary needs another week.
I chose still not to rank him because he's got that weird groin injury, I think. I wouldn't be shocked if he misses.
After last week, they're going to give Tyrone Tracy the chance to earn more touches. He just showed that he's doing things that Singletary isn't. You know, he's breaking off big chunk plays and he looked really good. I think Singletary is Zach Moss in this offense, and Tyrone Tracy is Chase Brown. You know, they're, speaking of the Spider-Man meme.
Yeah. No Malik Neighbors. He has been ruled out again. This was a tougher one than I think it should have been, but I am going to go with the Bengals.
I'm taking the Bengals as well.
Monday Night Football, a battle of New York division rivals, the 3-2 Buffalo Bills at the 2-3 New York Jets, two teams that are both hungry for a win. Dennis, James Cook has been a little banged up and hasn't been practicing. He's still listed as questionable. How are you feeling about him going into this week?
I think if he plays, you play him. He's RB5 on the year, and they don't want him to miss games. And so if he needs a week, they're going to give him a week. So I would, if they say, hey, we're going to roll you out there, I'm going to roll him out there too.
Some kind of a foot. He was deemed a non-participant, but they only did a walkthrough today. But you really need to watch the injury report for both him and Khalil Shakir tomorrow. Both of them were non-participants. Shakir missed last week. So, if you want to roll the dice, you need to watch those Saturday reports for the Monday night game. The Jets, meanwhile, made a head coaching change. During the week, they also made an offensive coordinating change. Nathaniel Hackett has been demoted, to no one's surprise. How do you think this Jets offense is going to respond this week?
Man, I don't know. I mean, Aaron Rodgers and his personality bring such a wild card atmosphere to this team that it's, they could all of a sudden explode. But I mean, Todd Downing had a run heavy offense in Tennessee under Fardiardi. Now, granted, he also had Derrick Henry, but let's face it, Breece Hall is no slouch running the ball, and Braylon Allen is not either. And Braylon Allen, well, not Derrick Henry big. He's big.
What's interesting to me is you're right. He came from those run-heavy offenses. Do you know he's been the passing game coordinator for New York prior to getting this play call?
Well, I think he went to Mike McCarthy's analytics classes, and the same place that did those. He went there to their.
Don't mention Mike McCarthy to Aaron Rodgers. I don't remember that ending.
They're passing the football classes at the Mike McCarthy School of Analytics. But to be fair, Aaron Rodgers might be in a complete and utter funk because of the Hackett demotion, or he might just audible to whatever the hell he wants to run anyways and just will the team to victory.
I think the real problem for Rodgers, and I've watched a few of their games because they obviously played Denver, and I watched that London game last week. And I think their first game was Monday night. So we've gotten a chance to. I think Aaron Rodgers is feeling a lot of effects of age. And that was a question that I had after his last year in Green Bay, because it doesn't seem like it was just the youth or lack of maybe receiving options. It seemed like he had lost a little bit of that mystique and that ability to put the ball somewhere. And I continue to see that with the Jets. And now his mobility isn't what it once was. And I don't think their line is as incredible as they wished it was. So if they can't get that running game flowing, he looks kind of statuesquely screwed back there.
He's looking a little bit like Dennis Quaid in Any Given Sunday.
Yeah, but they don't. I'm not sure Tyrod's got that Jamie Foxx energy left in him either.
They need to find. Their Steamin' Willie Beeman is on IR, and Jordan Travis.
I went back and forth because sometimes, those coaching changes give you some energy, but I just still feel like the energy from the Jets is bad. I'm taking the Bills.
Against my better judgment, I'm going to stick with the Jets.
I mean, I do feel like it's one of those that could kind of go either way. Nothing would totally surprise me because both of these teams are coming off of back-to-back abysmal losses, where you'd question some coaching, you would question some of the decision making by key players on the field. So this is not the battle of titans that we were looking for.
It could be a last second 13-10 kind of win. It could be a 41-7 blowout. It could be a 37-34 game. It could go either direction in any of those scenarios.
Well, that'll wrap it up for week number 6 and the preview. Dennis, if people are looking for something to occupy their Saturday, what can they do?
They can grab this little thing right here, go to their favorite podcast platform, type in the Fantasy Football Roundtable podcast, give us a like, give us a subscribe, leave us a rating and a review.
We'll be back on Tuesday to talk about all of the week 6 action and to preview Thursday Night Football, which next week is actually a battle of potentially rookie quarterbacks since the Broncos are at the Saints.
They can they could go back onto Tuesday's show and listen to my call of Spencer Rattler in New Orleans.
I know. How do you think Jake Haener feels? Like, you're number 2. Don't worry. You beat him out in camp. You beat him out in camp. Oh, shit. Derek Carr's gone. Jake, we don't really want you to play.
Hey, Jake, you're still number 2.
Well, let's hope we don't all end up number 2 in our own lives. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend, and I hope your fantasy teams have enough healthy players to field a lineup. Until Tuesday, you guys take it easy.
Ciao, baby.